In the final years of the Third Reich, Adolf Hitler appeared unstoppable, a commander driven by unbreakable will, a dictator who never slept, who demanded absolute loyalty and who pushed his armies to wage total war. But behind the grand speeches, the propaganda, and the iron facade, his body was crumbling, his mind deteriorating, his veins pumped full of powerful drugs daily. Some of them highly addictive, some of them experimental, drugs that altered his decisions and changed the course of history. How did one of the most feared men in the world become so dependent on a personal doctor with a suitcase of injections? When Adolf Hitler rose to power in 1933, he presented himself as the embodiment of discipline. He championed the image of a man untouched by vice. No alcohol, no tobacco, no meat, no stimulants. He seemed the picture of self-control. The Nazi propaganda machine reinforced the story of a leader whose focus was pure and unwavering. But even in those early years, Hitler suffered from chronic stomach issues, intestinal cramps, gas pressure, insomnia, and migraines so severe that he sometimes collapsed after his frenzied speeches. To manage these ailments, he sought medical help, and he found it in the form of Dr. Theodor Morell, a physician with an unusual background, questionable methods, and an obsession with exotic drug treatments. Their relationship began in 1936. Hitler complained of severe intestinal discomfort, and Morell administered a mixture that included multiflora bacteria and vitamins. The relief was immediate. Suddenly, the dictator believed he had found the only doctor capable of understanding his body. Hitler rewarded Morell with unmatched trust, and soon, unprecedented access. Morell would become what some historians call the most dangerous man in Hitler's headquarters, because his influence did not operate through policy or ideology, but through a needle. Each morning, Morell entered Hitler's private quarters with a briefcase filled with vials. He injected the Führer with vitamins, hormones, and a rotating list of over 70 different substances throughout the war, many of which were stimulants. Others were opioids. Some were animal-derived extracts advertised with unproven medical effects. Hitler became dependent on injections to function, physically and emotionally. And the most alarming drug of all entered his life in 1941, methamphetamine, known in Germany as Pervitin. Pervitin was widely distributed in the Wehrmacht. Soldiers and tank crews popped tablets during rapid offensives, including the Blitzkrieg through France and the early invasion of the Soviet Union. It kept them awake for days. It killed hunger and fear. It created the illusion of invincibility. When Morell began injecting Hitler with the same substance, the effects were profound. His confidence surged. His speeches regained strength. His self-image, already inflated by power, swelled into messianic delusion. But methamphetamine exacts a price. Irritability, paranoia, violent mood swings, all of which witnesses observed in Hitler with growing alarm. Officers around him noticed that he seemed unable to tolerate disagreement. His famous temper became unpredictable and explosive. The stimulant highs were followed by brutal crashes. And, to recover from these crashes, Morell introduced yet more drugs, including Eucadal, a strong opioid similar to heroin. Relief from pain and depression came instantly, but at the cost of spiraling addiction. Hitler's health declined rapidly. No longer the energetic political firebrand of the 1930s, he developed tremors in his left hand, stiffness in his joints, and twitching facial muscles. Some historians suggest that these symptoms indicate Parkinson's disease, yet the constant injections and drug interactions made the true cause impossible to separate. Each attempt to treat a symptom worsened another. Morell's remedies created dependency, and that dependency locked Hitler inside a cycle he could not escape. His decisions on the battlefield began to mirror his internal instability. In the early years of the war, he often relied on instinct, and sometimes those instincts led to swift, brutal success. But as the drug use intensified, so did his detachment from reality. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union in June of 1941, Hitler expected a quick victory. He dismissed concerns from his generals about harsh winters and supply lines. He believed, perhaps with stimulant-fueled confidence, that sheer willpower would crush the Soviet Union before year's end. Even as evidence mounted that the campaign was failing, Hitler refused tactical retreats. Units were ordered to hold positions until destroyed. The stubbornness stemmed not only from ideological fanaticism, but also from the altered state of a leader disconnected from consequence. Methamphetamine has a way of convincing the brain that defeat is impossible. By 1943, the tide had turned. The failure at Stalingrad marked the beginning of a long retreat. Hitler's paranoia intensified. Sleep was brief and restless. His hands shook during conferences. He required multiple injections per day just to stand and speak. Morell, once seen as a miracle worker, was now viewed by many inside the Nazi hierarchy as a liability, perhaps even a threat. They saw Hitler changing, sinking deeper into physical decay and mental instability. and the doctor at his side increasing the dosage. If Hitler skipped his morning injections, staff noticed the difference immediately. He became sluggish, confused, withdrawn. The drugs had become his energy source. Some days, Morell administered cocaine into Hitler's nasal passages to relieve sinus pain and give a temporary boost. Other times, he delivered Eucadol to stave off crippling withdrawal symptoms. The Führer, once obsessed with presenting himself as the master of his own body, was now ruled by dependency. Even Hitler's closest associates were disturbed by Morell's influence. Albert Speer, the Minister of Armaments, remarked that Hitler's physical state visibly changed after each injection. Moments of agitation followed by moments of eerie calm. Others whispered that Morell was turning Hitler into a laboratory experiment, but no one dared remove him. As long as Hitler trusted Morell, Morell remained untouchable. When the July 20th assassination attempt occurred in 1944, Hitler survived, but his injuries amplified his drug regimen. Pain, anxiety, and increasing sleep disorder meant more opioids, more stimulants, more frequent injections. The bunker staff noticed dramatic personality shifts. Hitler obsessed over betrayal, convinced spies lurked everywhere. His voice weakened, his posture stooped. He was barely able to walk without assistance. Yet he continued to issue irrational military orders, commanding non-existent armies to launch counterattacks, refusing evacuations, dreaming of miracle weapons that would swing the war in his favor. Some German officers speculated that the Führer was no longer fully sane. And beneath the paranoia, his deepest fear was emerging. His body was failing, and he knew it. Observers watched him spiral into obsessive rants, often switching emotional states within minutes. Methamphetamine abuse can produce exactly this volatility, destroying judgment and amplifying self-delusion. Still, Morell administered his daily injections, until even Hitler began to question the man he once trusted completely. As Soviet artillery shook the ground above the Führer bunker in April 1945, Hitler's physical condition reached its lowest point. His face appeared sunken, his skin an unhealthy grey. The once electrifying voice sounded hoarse and broken. He trembled uncontrollably while awarding medals to teenage boys pressed into hopeless defense. Morell tried to maintain his routines, but the chaotic environment made proper dosage impossible. Hitler's dependence, however, remained. His last days were marked not only by the collapse of his empire, but by the absence of the chemical crutch he once relied on. In a moment of paranoia toward the end, he dismissed Morell from the bunker, accusing him of failing to keep him healthy. Without his constant supply of injections, Hitler's withdrawal symptoms worsened, contributing to his final mental decline. In those final hours, isolated beneath the devastated city, Hitler faced the one enemy he could not escape: his own deteriorating body and mind. Years of drug abuse had stripped him of stability, confidence, and ultimately control. The man who demanded absolute domination over millions of lives had surrendered himself to chemicals that altered every decision, every command, and every judgment during the most critical years of the war. On April 30th, 1945, after realizing Germany's defeat was inevitable, the dictator ended his life. His final moments were far from the image of invulnerability the Nazis once projected. The master of destiny had become a broken figure, ravaged by addiction, his mind clouded by the very substances he once believed made him stronger. The world would learn the truth slowly. In the aftermath of the war, captured medical records and testimonies revealed the shocking scale of Hitler's drug use. There were charts detailing injections, lists of substances, notes from Morell describing treatments that today would be recognized as extreme and dangerous. Historians and doctors have since debated how deeply addiction shaped Hitler's decisions, and how many turning points of World War II were influenced by chemicals flowing into his veins. The myth of the disciplined leader, the ascetic visionary, was shattered. Underneath the carefully constructed facade was a man whose power could not protect him from weakness. He believed drugs made him unstoppable. Instead, they accelerated his unraveling, dragging a nation and a continent into catastrophic ruin. In the end, Hitler's darkest secret was not just the evil he unleashed upon the world, but the private war raging inside his own body. His addiction chipped away at the stability of a nation and altered the fate of millions. It is a chilling reminder that unchecked power can mask deep vulnerability, and that the consequences can be catastrophic. Do you think Hitler's drug addiction changed the course of the war? Or would history have played out the same way without Morell's influence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into hidden history compelling, please like this video, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.